Hello, Internet. Good morning. I am Ryan Ingram, and this is the Friday morning live stream. So, I am really looking forward to answering any and all questions that come across. I'm going to go ahead and get all set up. Go ahead and post any questions you might have in the chat, and a friendly reminder that this is not any sort of, I'm no expert. Not a lawyer, not an attorney, not even a real estate professional, not a realtor. So before you do anything, feel free to reach out to a licensed professional before you take any action on anything that I say. Let's see. I know for sure that we have some questions that have been asked that I can go ahead and answer. All right. Let's see. Good morning, sir. I appreciate seeing you on here. All right. Well, the first question that I have is uh, it says this. I'm looking to purchase my first property. As a funding strategy, I'm looking to refinance my current home and pull out the equity to use as a down payment for 2 to 3 properties. What are your thoughts on this strategy? Absolutely. I mean, I think there are two main ways that you can access the capital or the equity inside of your home. The first is to just do a cash out refinance, and the second is to do like a home equity line of credit. Of these two, I think it is most effective to do a cash out refinance if you have the ability to do so, if you don't mind going through the full refinance process. And the main reason that I say that is because when you do a cash out refinance, there's no strings attached to that money. It is yours. You have a fixed, that loan repayment is part of your mortgage payment already. There's no additional payments. And you've got 30 years on that to repay it. So it's fully amortized over 30 years. And you never have to give that money back. There's not going to be any follow-up questions about what you do with it, and there's not going to be any additional information that you need to provide the bank on how you decide to utilize those funds. When you do a home equity line of credit, you have a little bit more structure that you need to follow. The pro to the home equity line of credit is it is an interest only. So it's kind of like a really low interest rate credit card in the fact that you only pay interest on the funds that you use as you use it. So in the event that it takes you 8, 9, 10 months to find a deal, it's not like you just have all of your home's equity sitting in a bank account and you're making those fixed, 30-year monthly mortgage payments the entire time. With the home equity line of credit, you only have to pay the interest on the amount that you actually utilize. So when it comes to acquiring additional properties, a rule of thumb that I like to use when it comes to traditional types of lines of credits or whatnot is if it is short-term capital, then you need to use that for uh, short-term debts or short-term assets. You do not want to use like a line of credit to buy a long-term asset. Now, one of the ways that I'm kind of messing up as I'm answering this is I'm kind of conflating your home equity line of credit with the commercial lines of credit. So if it is a commercial line of credit, it's generally renewable on a annual basis. So, the home equity lines of credits that we have on some of the rental properties, we have to regularly, pay those down and show that we're using it kind of like working capital. Also, on the commercial lines of credits that we use, they are renewable on an annual basis. So after any given 12-month period, the bank could, in theory, say, "Hey, we don't want to do this line of credit anymore. You need to pay this back," or they will amortize the loan and make it like a fixed loan. However, if it's your personal residence, that home equity line of credit, I think there is like a 3 to 4 year borrowing window and then like a 10-year repayment, something like that, which makes it more of a uh, long-term debt. So either way, accessing your equity in your home on either of those two, I think is a good idea. Especially because if it's your personal residence, then you are going to get some of the lowest interest rates that are available out there. And then, using that to get the down payment or using that as down payments to acquiring 2 to 3 additional properties, very solid. I think, uh, I think that's really good. My preferred method, if I were to utilize this strategy, would be doing the cash out refinance so that I am immediately, amortized over 30 years on that new amount that I was able to cash out. And then as I make those down payments on the 2 to 3 additional properties, I would not have any rush or burden to pay that down payment back um, in the near future. So that would be my preferred, most comfortable route of doing it, should I be in the position that you are currently. Now, one way, if you had enough equity in your house to do a HELOC and purchase another property outright, and then, once you got that property rehabbed and rented out, if you then put that property on a traditional refinance and used or refinance that property with a traditional bank and did like a cash out refinance, and it was more than enough to pay off your HELOC, I think I would probably go with that one if it is more of a kind of rapid repayment. But if it is down payment money where it's going to sit in the property for a while and it's really difficult to get out of the property, then I would go that 30-year amortization cash out refinance of your personal home equity. I hope that makes sense. That's what I would do. That's what little old Ryan Ingram would do. So another question that I got that I think is a really good one, and it is a pretty common question that I get that unfortunately there's not really any good answer to, is are there other ways of collecting data for repair costs? Do you keep a spreadsheet of costs that you had to pay for certain things such as drywall, paint, tile, carpet, etc.? Not really. Maybe mentally, but this is an area that I'm currently struggling in just because prices have gone up so much in the past couple years that everything that I have memorized about repair costs from 2018, 19, 2020 are now all wrong. So everything costs more, and I'm still getting used to paying these increased prices. When I first started, you could replace any roof for 5 grand. The most problematic roof would be $7,500 to $10,000. That's 3 to 4 layers of shingles, all new decking, really steep pitch, and now this office space that we're in, we paid $18,000 to repair this roof in that same condition. 4 layers, all new decking, and really steep pitch. So generally, I would say most of the investors that I know do not keep any spreadsheets. They just, pay attention and kind of build a kind of a mental, some good old mental memory of what they have paid for, what decent prices are or rates. I know a lot of investors have little shortcuts that they've created. $5,000 for a small kitchen, $7,500 for a medium kitchen, $10,000 for a large kitchen, $4 per square foot on the flooring side of things. So I would say once you collect a couple quotes, you will start getting familiar with the prices in your area, because one thing's for sure is that material costs are different in different places, and labor costs are definitely different in different places. When you have when you live in an area with a lower cost of living, subsequently the labor costs are lower. Whereas I imagine that the labor costs in higher places with higher costs of living are significantly scarier and much higher. So just like the real estate market as a whole, I would say it's very difficult to and impossible to assess what things should cost on a national perspective. And the few times that I've Googled, how much should it cost for 1,000 square foot of flooring, and you have places like websites like Angie's List or something that give you a range. The ranges are generally massive and very unhelpful. So, and then you also are going to get a feel for your contractors, right? So contractors play a big role in how much you're going to pay. If you pay, or if you reach out to one of the contracting companies that has all of their vans wrapped, full websites, massive staffs of people, then you're going to pay significantly more than if you contact a contractor that has a van and 3 to 4 buddies that he works with. So even inside of your area, there's a large range. It's really tough. I would say, especially when you're starting out, I would say it's probably more beneficial to find a contractor that you appreciate, that's responsive to you. Um, and once you get comfortable with the contractor, I would also just, probably recommend paying their prices and not going through the pain of spending, you know, 10 hours of your own time collecting quotes from 4 or 5 different people, and, just for one of them to inevitably not show up for you, or show up for half the job, complete it, then leave you high and dry. That would not be good. So if you factor in your time and also the extra costs in working with somebody that might be cheaper, but you're unfamiliar with, then you'll probably end up just paying the guy that's a little bit more responsive to you, that you like more. And even though he might be a little bit more pricey, it'll be okay in the long run. Tall and Blind, congratulations. You close on Monday. Well, that is fantastic. Good work. What are the numbers on it, if you don't mind sharing? I would love to hear about it. One question that I'm really pumped to answer is, hi, Ryan, does one need any certification to engage in foreclosed home buying? The answer to that is no. All you need to do is know where to look for the information, know how to place your bid, and have the appropriate capital either lined up or, just have the appropriate capital lined up in order to follow through on that purchase. So no license is needed, and I think that's really cool. Probably one of the cooler things about real estate investing is that you do not need any type of formal license or degree to get started. Just the appropriate capital and the willingness to give it a shot. So early on in me trying to learn how to run and own a business, I made some pretty big mistakes, and they cost a pretty penny. And I met with a fella who gave me the advice that I think I've leaned on a lot, and that is that you will most certainly make mistakes. And whenever he has made mistakes, he thinks of it as business tuition. You can either pay to get the appropriate formal education to avoid mistakes, or if you choose to kind of learn as you go, or kind of learn on the streets, then you are going to end up paying for those mistakes, and you're going to learn from the mistakes that you inevitably pay for. And I think that is a good way to look at. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody to be reckless and go out there and make mistakes, but when you are out there kind of learning the ropes, inevitably you're going to make a mistake, and it's going to cost you money. But that's okay. It is part of the process. I wouldn't beat yourself up about it. I would just figure out how to never make that mistake again. And we have made some really big mistakes. Have you ever built a home from the ground up? If so, about how much did you spend? Yes, I did. When I lived in North Carolina, my wife and I built a house on some land that we purchased, but I have never done it from an investing perspective. So I think I'm about to. We put a vacant lot under contract this past week, and it's a little over half an acre. I don't know anything about building homes at the moment, but I figure the area that lot is in, uh, the comps in that neighborhood have the ability to support a new home being built. So we purchased a lot for 5,500, and I have spoken so far to one and only one person that is uh, in the process of building homes, and he says that he can build a house for about 150 grand that is around 2,200 square feet. So those are the numbers that I've been working off from a mental perspective. So the lot was 5,500 is what I put it under contract for. And, if we spend 150 grand on building the house, 2,200 square feet, in theory, uh, a lot of the homes in the market in that area are selling for somewhere between $90 and $110 per square foot. So, it should put us under that 75% after repair value mark when it's all said and done. But we'll see. I will definitely keep you updated as we are navigating that process. What do you think of real estate wholesaling? I think it's a good way to get started if you don't have any capital and you just have some time that you want to go out and find deals and kind of build up the mechanics and the uh, muscle memory of finding deals, analyzing deals, networking with people with the appropriate capital to purchase these deals from you. I think if you are going to be in wholesaling, you need to put a personal emphasis on being extraordinarily ethical and upright. I think wholesaling lends itself to being, just kind of a natural disposition to being a little bit predatory. And, so long as you are putting safeguards against you contributing to that aspect of wholesaling, then I think you're going to be good to go. And I think it's a great way to make some money, to help some people sell their homes or navigate the real estate process. The one thing I don't like about it is when you're a realtor, there's it's been litigated. There's state laws and governing bodies in charge of it that are the ones that dictate the commission And also realtors, as they are receiving their license and contributing to their local area board of realtors, they have a fiduciary responsibility for the person that's selling the home. And, most realtors don't knowingly allow their sellers to sell a property for less than it's worth. Now, a wholesaler, on the other hand, does not have that fiduciary responsibility. It benefits the wholesaler if they're able to get the seller down to a price that is way below market, because the lower the price they can get the seller to, the bigger the spread they can make. So I've been a part of many transactions where the wholesaler walks away with more money than the homeowner did. Now, some of those are circumstances where um, kind of made sense. But for the most part, it generally never does. So, um, business to business wholesaling, I don't mind so much. Another part of me says, "Hey, it's America. If you want to sell your house for $1,000 and it's worth 150, then you should have the ability to do so. It's your decision." However, I do think that there should be, they, it shouldn't be so. I think there should definitely be some safeguards to protect people that don't know anything from wholesalers. So business to business, one investor to another and a wholesaler making that transaction, sure, that's fine by me. But if it is an owner occupant and the person bought the house 50 years ago and the entire, real estate market processes, procedures have changed, um, I think, to those people who might not be doing their own research, um, you know, they should be protected somehow. However, that person also generally has every opportunity available to them to do their own research, to get a hold of a realtor, to look at, comparable sales in the area. So I don't really know what I'm saying. I don't have any answers. If I had all the answers, I would be at the board of realtors now lobbying for a change. But I don't. And I think there's valid cases to be made both ways. But if you are interested in wholesaling, just make sure that, especially if you're talking to, really old homeowners, that you need to protect their interests, even though there's no obligation from a legal perspective for you to have their best interests. You should just do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Nice. Good work. Cameron Bennett. Good morning, man. Happy to see you on here. I grabbed 3 vacant lots in Springfield, Illinois. They were under 1K and near downtown. I figured I would just hold on to them for now. That's good. Just, property taxes are generally pretty low when you get lots like that. Generally about, I mean, I don't know. Every municipality is different. But yeah, I would just say lawn care might be your biggest thing. Mowing those lawns. Illinois, you get a decent amount of snow, I presume. So you only need to mow the lawn for half or less than half of the year. It should be good. People don't want to pay wholesalers premium. Do your wholesalers charge you a high premium? Uh, I think that is really interesting, right? So, like, I have had multiple deals fall through at the closing table when you when the seller for the first time sees how much the wholesaler is making on the HUD, because the wholesaler wasn't necessarily forthright or honest or open with how much they're making the transaction. So, again, if a fair price is 50,000, but the wholesaler has negotiated the seller down to 25,000, so the wholesaler is making a $25,000 fee. If the numbers still work because the house is worth 80 grand, then it's almost irrelevant what the wholesale fee is. So you can easily bake wholesale fees into the numbers. The only people that are really taking the brunt of that are the sellers, the ones that are actually entitled to the equity in that. So, from an investor perspective, if the deal makes sense, then the deal makes sense. How the wholesaler and the seller divvy up, the amount that a home is worth is on them. Now, generally in like the lower value areas where uh, we buy homes, where it's still possible to buy a house for less than 70 grand, sometimes less than 50 grand, sometimes less than 30 grand, then, a $1,000 to $5,000 wholesale fee is very reasonable. So, I don't know. I think the highest wholesale premium that we've paid, or the wholesale fee that we paid, is like 20 grand. But I mean, we don't really know until it comes down to the HUD. And if our numbers work, then, and it's still a good deal for us, then we would still buy it. I wouldn't turn away a deal just because I thought the wholesaler premium was too high if the numbers made sense. But the part that I don't like is, like I said, when there's owner occupants that have lived there for 40, 50 years, and, I'm struggling to recalibrate like what I expect to pay on, contractor pricing, making that jump from 2019 to 2022. So, I can't imagine owning a home for 40, 50 years, you being a little bit messed up, especially if you've been completely unplugged from the real estate market on like what the value of your home is. Now, technology has made it to where you just got to log on to the World Wide Web and you can get some rough numbers pretty quickly. But it goes back to the fact that not many people, or there are people out there that don't know how to do that, that still own a home. And that is the only thing that I have an issue with, is when those people are um, having really large wholesale fees added onto a price that they feel comfortable with selling the house for. The fiduciary responsibility is the only thing that I have issue with. If I have a really good friend who bought an apartment complex, and the wholesaler made $60,000, and the seller was aware that the wholesaler was going to make $60,000 off of it, and he was okay with it. The wholesaler knew what the wholesaler was going to make, and then the buyer was also fully aware of what the wholesaler was going to make. However, as he did his analysis of the apartment complex, those numbers still made sense. So, everybody's in the know. Everybody thought that it was okay, and everybody was happy with how much went to them at the closing table. So, in that situation, there's no fault. The wholesaler can make as much as all parties are comfortable with. So, that's the only thing that I'm saying. I think I'm just going to start repeating myself if I keep going on. Listing price was 68,000, bought for 70,000. I put 20% down, tenant occupied, appraised at 75,000, 7.1% interest. Did I do good? Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see here. I think you did fine. Your first property is all about getting out there and becoming, the man in the arena, I would say. So for a first deal, this is fantastic. This seems like a very solid long-term play. 7.1% interest, that probably eats up some of your cash flow, but you're going to be able to do a refinance whenever interest rates get lower again. What is the property rented for currently? If this property is rented for 750 or more, or has the ability to be, then I wouldn't be too worried about it. If it's closer to 1,000, then it becomes more of a great deal. And if it is rented out for, over 1,100, then it's an absolute home run. And then I would say that The only thing that I'd watch out for is, since you purchased the property for 70,000 and it only appraised for 75,000, in theory, if the appraisal is correct, which sometimes they're not, sometimes appraisals are worthless, then you've only got $5,000 worth of equity. So what that tells me is that absolutely everything in that house needs to be perfect, recently renovated, updated, electric, updated plumbing, newer roof, all the mechanicals in good working order. Because if you ever need to put more than $5,000 in this house and it doesn't appreciate, then you're going to be upside down, which is a bad place to be. You do not want to be in an upside down position. Where can I find a purchase agreement template for seller financing? I don't know. I would say getting uh, the attorney fees for drafting an agreement that everyone is comfortable with, especially if this is a new relationship, if you don't know this person, if you've just agreed to seller financing, I would spring the 500, 600 bucks it may cost for an attorney to prepare the documents to the satisfaction of both parties. um, if this is somebody that you have a great relationship with, if this is somebody that you have known for a long time, then I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to finding some sort of template online and customizing it to the terms that fit the deal. But if that's not the case, I would highly recommend that you just, take 30, 45 minutes, sit down with an attorney, let them draft up these documents appropriately, um, so that all parties can be satisfied and all the difficult questions are asked about what happens in the event of default, how you want to handle that, and all those things. I like some of the strategies wholesalers use to find cheap properties. I think investors should use some of those strategies. I think they will. I think I think they will, and I think I completely agree with you. I'm in the process of attempting to figure out how to deploy some of these uh, internally. So I think it's a great idea. I think that if you're an investor that has the bandwidth to do some of these marketing strategies, then you should. I would say the more control you have over your deal flow, the better of a position that you're in. So I'm not looking to take away from any of the current deal streams that we have. I'm still going to purchase properties from all the realtors, wholesalers, everybody else that brings deals our way. However, I'd also just like to do some very targeted marketing because I am very familiar with the areas I like to purchase in and the properties I like to purchase. Also, how much I'm willing to pay for those. So I agree. I think that's a great idea. I wasn't satisfied with my first deal. I paid $25,000 for a duplex in Flint, Michigan. Needs serious work. Neighboring homes going for 30K. You learned. You learned though. For legal documents and for sites like Bigger Pockets, I would not do it. If you want to use it for reference to see that you are on the right track, then go for it. But I would not really trust Bigger Pockets for anything other than providing a space for you to ask questions, generic questions to other people that are also interested in investing in real estate and might also have the ability to weigh in because they have recently wondered the same thing. But very little faith I have in that site. Um, very little weight I would put on anything that they produce. I'm sure when they first started, they did a great job at you know putting a lot of information out there, but using them for anything other than a second opinion or a point of reference, I think would be a pretty big mistake. I guess I would also double down and say that that is the case for everything on the internet, to include this channel. Real estate is one of those things that is so hard to make applicable to an entire nation of people. Every single real estate market is different. Dayton, where I'm at, is fundamentally different than Columbus, an hour away. What I do here in Dayton cannot work in Columbus. You know, uh, since we've been talking about wholesalers, we all the time have Columbus and Cincinnati wholesalers trying to figure out how to work the Dayton market and miserably fail, right? They think that Cincinnati is getting too competitive. So they look around at other areas where the prices aren't so high, and they think that they could, use their same big city tactics in Dayton as well. And it's just not true. Uh, the people are different. The locations are different. The um, the subculture around title companies, real estate investors, residents, owner occupants, it's completely different. The trends, expectations, all different. So I would say that I would say if you're looking for a template to use, then I would say the most effective thing that you could do, and you are refusing to reach out to an attorney that is experienced in doing this in your area, I would say the next best thing that you should do is find a local investor that has done a seller financing deal and check out their template or their contract that they used. But at the end of the day, I still wouldn't trust that either. But that would be one step closer to the right direction than finding a template on the World Wide Web. There have also been some wholesalers, some out of state wholesalers that have really crashed and burned in the area as well. Uh, I was recently at a title company and they showed me a real big bill that an out of state wholesaler racked up with them because they came in really quick. They put a lot of properties under contract. They did all the title searches just to find out that they came in way too heavy on these contracts. And they could not sell them to anyone because they were so far off in their analysis. And paying for all those title searches really adds up. All right, got a few more questions from this here YouTube comment section. Another one about a foreclosure. Is it possible to buy from, let's see here, is it possible to buy from person with a loan through pre-foreclosure? Also, how will I say it? Also, is it possible to auction online? Where can I go to find out when homes will be auctioned at the courthouse? So if you're looking on your your local municipality, I would say typing in something like, Dayton is Montgomery County. So I would type in something to the effect of Montgomery County Sheriff Sale. And I would look for, the website that has all of the listings of the forthcoming auctions. Now, some municipalities, I think the smaller you get, the more old school they get. I've gotten some comments on the foreclosure video that I did where they print out a sheet of paper of the upcoming foreclosures on like a weekly or monthly basis, but you have to physically go down to the courthouse to see the list. So they're not on the internet at all. So that is a possibility. You could also use websites like PropStream, which I've got an affiliate link for that I would love for you to use. And they, scour tons of public information and aggregate them into their database, and they allow you to search pre-foreclosures. That's a pretty easy and pretty effective way to find them. However, if your local area is not online, then the chances of PropStream having accurate data is pretty slim. Another thing that you could do to find pre-foreclosed homes is if your county records are online, then you would be able to see you would be able to go through all the the public court filings and see which foreclosures have been filed and onto what properties. And then, yes, I think it's definitely possible to buy from a person using a loan when that house is in like the quote unquote pre-foreclosure state. So that means the foreclosure hasn't finalized. The person still has the ability to get caught up on their payments or to pay off that mortgage in full. It might take some legwork in communicating to the bank that the sale is pending, but you could definitely do it. And you could definitely use a loan because when it's in this stage, if you know the buyer, if you're the one talking to them and making the agreements with them, then you're going to have access to the interior of the home. So if the interior of the home is in a livable condition, then you're not going to have any issue getting a loan on that property. The only real reason that you're not able to use a loan to purchase a foreclosure is because you don't have access to the interior of the home. And if you don't have access to the interior of the home, then the interior of the home is an absolute mystery. And if it's a mystery, no bank wants to lend money on collateral that they don't know how strong or weak of collateral it is. So since it's impossible to determine, it's not a risk that they're willing to take. If it is a bank-owned foreclosure, so if the foreclosure process has already finished and now the bank has hired a realtor to sell that house or that bank-owned property, you do have access to the interior, and consequently, you can now get a bank loan. So the only thing preventing using traditional financing on foreclosures is the fact that you need access to the interior so the bank can be confident in the collateral that they are accepting for the money they are lending. Um, so yes, using a loan in with a person through the pre-foreclosure process is definitely possible. Okay, well, this last question is really fun, and she watched the video very thoroughly. So she says, "Great video. I'm looking into purchasing a long-term rental property. How do you end up paying off the loan if you're doing interest-only payments? Do you just throw that extra cash to principal or question mark?" So what she's referring to is our business model. What we do is we use private loans or private lenders, private mortgages from individuals. So we we borrow money at 10 and 12% interest only. We use that capital. It is a first position mortgage on the property that we're purchasing. We use that capital to purchase and rehab a home. Now, when we do this, we make sure that the property, our all in, our purchase plus rehab costs are 75% or less of the after repair value. Now, if we're able to do that successfully, which we usually are, then once that property is renovated, once it's beautiful, once it's rented out, once there's a long like a lease in place, then we're able to take that to the bank and say, "Hey, look at this stable collateral. We would like a 20, 30-year loan on this property." They'll say, "Wow, that is very good collateral. You have done a great job. This is a income producing property. We would happily accept this as collateral on the money that we will lend you. In fact, we're going to lend you 75% of what the appraiser says that this is worth." So if we did our formula correctly and our purchase price plus rehab costs, which we borrow 100% of at 10, 12%, is truly 75% or less of the after repair value, and when the bank comes in and lends us 75% of the value that Mr. Appraiser says the home is worth, then that will be sufficient, hopefully more than sufficient, to pay off that first position mortgage that we took off with the friend or family member at 10 and 12%. So it is only our intention to have an interest only loan on the property for the first, you know, 9 to 18 months of us having a property. Once we get everything situated in order and rent it out, then we'll go to a traditional lender and we will refinance out that interest only loan from the beginning. And because people appreciate getting 10 to 12% on an investment where their full principal amount is secured by an asset that's ultimately worth more than the amount of money that they lent, it's an extremely stable and very predictable investment. So they don't want those monthly interest rate payments to stop. So generally, most people are motivated to do it again, which that allows us to recycle that initial capital that was used to fund that property. And we can work with that lender again to do another property. So it allows us to regularly recycle funds. And because we don't have any of our own money into the deal, because we did the formula appropriately and we found a discounted deal where we could buy it and rehab it for less than 75% of the after repair value, um, we're only limited by the amount of bandwidth of people that we have and or capital available from these private lenders on how quickly we can grow. Because most people, regardless of how much money you have, at some point, if you're using your own capital, you're going to run out of it. But if you can prevent yourself from utilizing your own capital, then there is really no limit on how quickly you can scale, other than contractors to do the work and private lending funds available to you. And also uh, traditional banks willing to refinance you on those properties. Current lease, a few minor cosmetic updates needed. Well, hey, it sounds good. Yeah, $750. I would say that hopefully the market rent is a little bit higher, and you can raise your rent once this current lease expires. Other than that, I would say this is a really solid base hit. I think you should hold your head high and be real proud of this deal. And I think probably in 3 to 5 years, you will see how great of a deal it was. From a cash flow perspective, it's not going to move the needle on your personal financial situation any, if at all. In fact, it may be a negative movement from a month to month cash flow perspective as you have to make repairs or make updates, or the resident doesn't pay or moves out. However, if you factor in the tax benefits you're going to get from this, if you factor in the principal pay down over the 30 years that you have this loan, and once you also factor in the appreciation, let a couple of years pass by and you're going to be sitting in a good spot. Because now that you're going to own this asset on an annual basis, the property is going to appreciate. I think historically the average rate of appreciation on properties is about 3%. Now we have seen that increase astronomically over the last couple of years just because of the amount of money that was printed and the amount of inflation that is currently in the economy. So, home prices have gone up significantly. So the appreciation has been higher than that estimated or historical 3% per year. But effectively, so long as you keep deferred maintenance off of this asset of yours, then you will be able to benefit from all of the appreciation. So long as you make your loan payments, you're going to benefit from the principal pay down, even at 7.1%. It might take you a little bit longer to see some real movement there, but nonetheless, 15, 20 years from now, you're going to have a decent amount. And you're also going to have the cash flow and the tax benefits. So keep good books and keep the deferred maintenance off that property. And you did a great job. Super pumped for you. Hey, better late than never, they say. Happy to have you here. Ravi Ray, I'm looking to refinance my rental property. Do you know any banks that are more likely to accept the automated valuation model? I wouldn't do it. Um, um, let's see. I'm looking to refinance my rental property. Do you know of any banks that are more likely to accept the automated valuation model? So, uh, I personally have never had any luck with these desktop appraisals. I find that these desktop appraisals or this AVM thing that you said are, you know, big tech people taking a whole bunch of data from the area. They don't have the ability to decipher between properties in great condition versus properties in horrible condition. Um, so I would say they generally come in about 10% low for us. Whereas here recently, having a physical real appraisal done, they've come in higher than we've expected. So the only reason I think one would want to do this is if their property isn't in as good of condition as the comps nearby. If you have a property barely hanging on and you want to refinance it to pull some cash out to hopefully fix that property, then I can see how uh, using that would be good. But the banks that I know that are willing to do that, I mean, their terms are just far less favorable. So, all in all, I would say I wouldn't do it. I would say that it's probably more effective and a better long term play to find some capital in another way to make all the necessary repairs to that property so that it will be part of the above average category as you're pulling comps. And then I would go to a bank and do a refinance with a real appraisal to get credit for the property. Because generally speaking, uh, it costs less money to bring a property up to speed and put it in above average condition than the amount of value that you're going to add to that property by doing that. So if you put 25 grand in, you might increase the property's value by 50 grand. Generally, you're going to increase the value by more than it's going to cost you to bring that property up to speed. So that would be my strategy. And if you're able to, so this would be a good example of something that it wouldn't necessarily be a horrible idea to use, like a line of credit or a credit card or some other short-term capital in order to improve a long-term asset so that when you get to the appraisal, it'll be worth more than the amount of money that you had to put into it. You should buy multiple properties, even if you can't afford any of them, comma, if you want to go bankrupt real fast. All right. I think I made it to the bottom of the questions that I came in with. Let's see here. It's 9 o'clock. We've been doing this for 1 hour. If you have any of the questions, go ahead and post them in the chat. Yep, answered all those questions that we pulled from the comments. We are only a mere 5 subscribers away from 19,000 subscribers. So we are at 18,995 subscribers. So if you're watching this and you get any value out of it, think to yourself, do I have one or two friends that could benefit from the type of information that's on this channel? If the answer is yes, feel free to scoot this URL over to them and say, hey, this is a channel that you should subscribe to because he puts out no fluffy content. In fact, his content might be too dry for most people to consume. It's so dry that the algorithm doesn't push it. All right. Well, today we are closing on, let's see, we're closing on 6 properties. Of those 6, 3 are occupied, 1 is rent ready, and 2 are light rehabs. Let's see. One of the things that we find ourselves regularly trying to balance is the number of occupied properties we purchase versus the number of rent ready properties that we purchase versus the number of rehab projects that we purchase. That is a number that I need to watch very closely and I need to revisit often because if you're not careful, you can purchase a significant number of vacant properties that need rehab, and manpower is something that is always going to have a bandwidth or a limit associated to it. So even if you had, 10 of the best deals out there, they can quickly turn into not so hot deals based on holding costs of um, that you're going to incur while you're waiting on somebody to do those. So we try to have some sort of mixture, and I try to always be balancing properties that we purchase that are occupied versus rent ready versus in need of some level of rehab. So let's see here. Of these 6, let me go through them really quickly. 1, 2, 2 of them were from wholesalers or off-market properties. And then the other 4 were from the MLS. A lot of investors, say things like the MLS is where deals go to die, and or they say that the MLS is a place where people go because, uh, regardless, a lot of people say that I don't even know what I'm trying to say anymore. Other than people think that the MLS is not a good place to get deals, and I would sometimes agree with that, but other times, especially, it seems like it always ebbs and flows. So there are sometimes I've seen it to where as soon as a property is listed, you've got multiple offers and it's really competitive. And other times, properties are listed and, we offer 50% of what it is listed for, and the contract will end up getting accepted. So, it's not a market thing. It's not an inventory thing. It's just truly It seems like it's a week by week, month by month thing. I don't quite know how to explain it, but we have had great success. There's, one of the properties that we're buying today is one that was on the MLS, and we offered 50% of what they were asking, and they accepted it. So I would say, just because something's on the MLS, don't think, and if it's priced too high, don't think that that's out of reach. There is still more than enough reason to put an offer in at the price that you're willing to pay. So I would say, in fact, that it's good practice to, even if you see a property on the MLS, do your analysis, come up with what you think a fair price would be based on what you can rent it out for, what the property needs, its current condition, and make that offer based on what would make it a good deal for you. I think you'd be surprised at the number of times that works. Now, there's going to be seasons where you get shot down hard, but we offered 50% of that one property and received it. And then just thinking back on the week that I had, I also can think of 4, maybe 5, where that didn't go over so well. And they said, sorry, we've got other cash offers that are significantly higher. We say, well, you should go with that one then. So don't get discouraged, and always be offering. Coffee is for offerers. Can you explain lending? Hey, thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time and info. Hey, man, thanks for joining. Can you explain lending from the income and property generates? Looking to refi out of a property in my business name. Can you explain lending from the income a property generates? So I think you have to have owned the property for a significant amount of time. I think probably 2 years, or have been in the business for 2 years for the income the property generates to be the only thing that you use to qualify on. Generally, especially if you have like 1 or 2 properties, you're going to have to use some of your personal income to qualify, in addition to just the income from the property. Unless it's a commercial property or like an apartment complex or something that has a larger number of income. But qualifying for one single family home based on the income of that one single family home is probably going to be pretty difficult to do. However, I would say that there are some variables out there like that. So there are some scenarios where, let's say you've owned the property for a while and your basis was low and your rents are now low or under market. You have probably more equity in the property than the cash flow from the property. So if you were to refinance and pull out the equity that you have, it may put you in a negative cash flow position. And that, from this question, that's the only thing that I could say don't do, that I can think of. So, on a couple of our higher equity properties, because they've appreciated, so much faster than we have expected, we've had to leave equity or not pull out the maximum amount, because then it would put us in a bad cash flow position. So it's just another reason to always be raising your rents and never deviate too far from market rent. We do have a couple of properties where people have lived there for 30 plus years, where they're paying like $350 and market rent is like $750, maybe even $800 at this point. But don't have a whole portfolio of those by any means. All right. Any questions you might have, feel free to throw those in the chat. Let's see. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that we were in the process of buying a business. We have purchased that business. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to talk about it, but we're really excited about it. So um, we bought it for a fair price. It's going to help our existing businesses. It came with a 6,500 square foot warehouse, a total of about 5 employees that are all great guys that are all really good at their jobs. So I'm really, really pumped about it. Really looking forward to talking about it. But I just want to before I say anything, I really want to be situated over there. We're in the process of learning at the moment how to run it from the previous owners, and once we get kind of settled in there, form a decent marketing plan around it. I would like to talk about it a lot, but until then, I'm going to hold off. Um, we bought it from the guy that's owned it for I think 20, maybe even 30 years. I'm not quite sure. The business has been around since 1965, which is really cool. And, uh, to the previous owners, own admission, he is tired and he hasn't done any sort of like marketing or really made any efforts to kind of drum in new business in a while. So there is a significant room. There's a lot of room for growth there with the appropriate marketing, putting that in place. So looking forward to learning how to do that, and looking forward to taking after more people. So my brother and I, one of the things that is becoming important to us is job creation, providing jobs to people, to good jobs, good people. We like that. Brings us joy, makes us happy. So step in the right direction. It is not a laundromat, not on your level yet. Yep. I would say, I would say that I would say there's a significant amount of opportunity. I don't know who Cody Sanchez is. I'll look him up afterwards. But I would say there's a significant amount of opportunity in buying businesses from older generations that are ready to retire. I would say that just like rental properties, there are businesses out there that have deferred maintenance on them. Maybe it's in the form of their accounting or bookkeeping. Maybe it's in the form of their marketing, their procedures. Maybe it's in the form of like actual physical deferred maintenance on real estate. Who knows? But it hasn't been ran in a manner where these large conglomerates or hedge funds, where all they do is go and buy businesses. A lot of times you'll see conglomerates go into specific industries. So I know an insurance agency is one of the things that I own. And there are, these conglomerates or hedge funds that all they do is go around and buy independent insurance agencies. So there's a market for that. And if you run it well, then you can sell to one of those conglomerates with very little difficulty. However, if it's not run well, you don't keep good books, or you have some type of kind of deferred maintenance on that business, then it becomes increasingly difficult. However, if there was a young person willing to fix that deferred maintenance, willing to take on and put in the energy to kind of turn things around, then you're going to be able to get a discount on that business, same as you would a rental property. And you're going to be able to bring it up to speed and make money on, the delta between what that business is truly worth if it was running like a fine oiled machine versus what it can sell for the deferred maintenance. So I was interested in a car wash in the area for quite some time, and I made several attempts to purchase it. But he's asking for absolute top dollar, but his books are in complete disarray. And since it's a cash business, he hasn't done a good job recording the appropriate amount of cash that he's bringing in. So he's alleging a certain amount of cash flow. And that's what he's basing his sales price off of. But because he doesn't want to pay the tax on that cash flow, he's not reporting it or recording it appropriately. And he's asking for somebody to take his word that that's what the car wash produces. But you can't do that. You can't ask for a sale price of a business that you can't prove. So it's been for sale for at this point over 2 years, and I don't think he's ever going to sell it until he kind of gets out of his own way and either does 2 years worth of appropriate proper bookkeeping or lowers his purchase price. But in the event that he does lower his purchase price, somebody that has the desire to pay the appropriate amount of taxes that they owe and record the business appropriately would then, once they have the books to match the asking price, would have a significantly better opportunity at either selling that business or doing some type of business loan on that business according to the cash flow. So significant amount of opportunity there. Out here in West Texas, these old good businesses aren't on Google. Can't find them if looking for their services. Exactly. Yep. I think that's the way to go. And I hope the pendulum swings like right. Like it was a big deal for a while for these conglomerates to go in and just buy everything. Um, and I'm really against businesses doing that. I think if you're a small business owner, you are contributing to a part of the larger problem at hand if you sell your business to a conglomerate. I would say that one of the things that I strongly dislike that I think I'm being biased and I'm letting out opinions here, but I've already set myself up to say it. I think every American should be against the consolidation of power and against big businesses owning significant portions of things. So, I think especially for the small businesses, I think if you are interested in going around in communities and buying up some of these older businesses, the level of difficulty on it, if you're one person and you want to own businesses throughout several different industries, um, there's a learning curve to that, and it's going to be difficult. But I think it's necessary, and I think that the whole like shop local thing for like local farmers and whatnot. I think that's got it's that thought process is just as applicable to small business owners or medium sized business owners as it is to those local farmers or local store owners. So that's my 2 cents. But uh, as our business grows and as we have a significant amount of fun in buying things that are distressed with deferred maintenance and bringing them back to their former glory, the more of that we accumulate, I think the more laughable it becomes that I say things like, consolidation. But I'm talking about billions and trillions of dollars of businesses. Like, and I would even say, I've gone on this tangent multiple times about retirement accounts, and that I think it would behoove everyone if more people took their retirement dollars out of their retirement accounts, or at least made them self directed and started investing their own retirement dollars in ways that either benefit them more now or invest those dollars into local businesses with local causes that they are going to be able to reap the benefit of, because the better these local businesses do, the better their community does. I would say Wall Street has done a fantastic job at marketing the employer sponsored, government sponsored retirement vehicles of 401ks and was it 527s, ESAs, all of these things. And sure, there might be some benefits to you, But the more that you're able to do self-directed, or the more you're able to not contribute to those and just store your cash on hand so that you can use your cash on hand to create more cash flow so that you don't have to work for as long in a job that you're not necessarily interested in working in the first place. I think you're going to be better off, and I think your community is going to be better off. And then I think the larger political frustrations that people may have would kind of get a little bit more diluted if everybody isn't in unison sending all of their money to the same people that they spend their time complaining about. And this is why I have a very slow growing channel. But to all of you who appreciate my opinions, I appreciate it. And keep in mind that I'm sure you know 5 people that would love to benefit from this channel, uh, so that we can get to 19,000. Well, I will stick around for a little bit longer to see if there are any questions. And if not, I'm going to skedaddle. All right. Well, hey, next Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be right here, ready to answer any and all questions you may have about investing in real estate. I will talk to you all next week.